be real honest, this script was a little difficult to write. I cried 3 or 4 times while writing it, and maybe 2 or 3 times while trying to record the audio. Ai Yazawa's unfinished masterpiece Nana will always hold a very, very special place in my heart, as well as the hearts of millions around the world, as being one of the top shoujo/josei series of all time. That's why it's so heartbreaking that Nana has been on hiatus ever since 2009 due to Ai Yazawa falling ill. And while there have been sporadic updates over the years, there's still little to no official news as to whether or not this series will resume continuation. As with my analysis on Fruits Basket, now available to watch on Black Girls Anime IGTV, Nana was a series that not only changed my life, but also showed me a new, different type of representation that I could personally and deeply relate to in more ways than one, for better or for worse. It was also one of the core series in my life that shaped my love and continued studying of writing, psychology, and sociology. Yet 11 years later, here I sit, waiting and praying for any kind of news on whether or not this series will eventually see completion and finally give us answers to questions that have gone unrequited for over a decade. I clearly haven't made peace with the fact that Nana may never return to publication. Even in 2015, I'd written an article for BuzzFeed with the top 10 questions I needed answers to. Yet, 5 years later, we're still no closer to any kind of definite answers. Still, just like Nana Komatsu and the iconic song A Little Pain, fans of the series will forever be waiting here for Nana to return to apartment 707 and give us the closure we so desperately need. That said, disclaimer time. The following is a huge content trigger and spoiler warning for this video and its subsequent analysis. The themes and topics I'll be discussing include, but are certainly not limited to, drug addiction, overdose, suicide, mental and emotional disorders, emotional, psychological, and physical abuse and trauma, and parental abandonment, as well as the very personal things I choose to share in these videos with proximity to those topics to make this and every video relatable, in-depth, informative, educational, and entertaining. That said, if any of these heavier topics may trigger you, upset you, or put you in a negative headspace emotionally, psychologically, or yes, even physically for those of us whose bodies react as a result of the former with some kind of physical reaction to mental and emotional stimulus, i.e. hyperventilation, shaking, or anything of that nature, then listen, I completely get it, okay? I'm black, autistic, queer, and non-binary, they them pronouns please and thanks, with plenty of past trauma that I myself am still working on and always will be healing from in some capacity. That said, there's just some sugar honey I see on the internet you just don't want to see or have to deal with, and when it's shoved in your face like an ashy but can he be Goku head ass, it sucks because you haven't had time to mentally or emotionally prepare yourself or prepare your way to avoid it entirely. I completely respect that, your feelings are valid, and fuck anyone else will tell you otherwise or make you feel lesser for it. That said, I'm giving everyone a 10-second head start to click out of this video, scroll past it, or switch apps because I love y'all and genuinely care about y'all's mental and emotional and physical well-being. That said, let's hit that clock.
Gobble me, swallow me, drip down inside of me, quick jump out for you, let it get inside of me. I tell them where to put it, never tell them where I'm about to be. I run down on them before I have a nigga running me. Talk your shit, bite your lip, ask for a call while you
Okay, for those who need a refresher or those who are brand new to Ai Yazawa's Nana, allow me to give you a brief bit of background on this iconic series. Nana is a manga series penned and illustrated by the queen of josei manga Ai Yazawa in 2000. What starts off as a cute and quirky coming-of-age tale about 2 young women in their 20s who share the same name, Nana, meaning 7, quickly takes several abrupt left turns as we, the audience, come to learn everything there is to know about this series and its complex cast of deeply flawed and equally relatable characters. We're first introduced to Nana Komatsu, a small-town, bubbly, energetic, and starry-eyed privileged suburbanite who follows her boyfriend and best friends to Tokyo in order to live the life she's always dreamed of. More so than that, Nana K hopes of one day finding her quote-unquote one true love, someone who will not only commit to her and her alone, but will also provide her with the ultimate lifetime of happiness she so desperately seeks. Nana Osaki, on the other hand, appears, at first glance at least, to be her polar opposite in nearly every aspect, both aesthetically and in regard to their core personalities, as well as the life events that shaped them into the people they would later become. Before moving to Tokyo, Nana O was the vocalist of a very popular punk rock band back in her own small hometown, who traveled to Tokyo with dreams of making it big as a singer. One snowy night, Nana K and Nana O meet on the very same train going to Tokyo. Upon arriving in Tokyo, the two part ways as 2 ships passing in the night, only to meet up once again when they share interest in renting the same 2-bedroom apartment, number 707. Nana O gives Nana K the nickname of Hachiko, or Hachi, meaning 8, as not only a way to avoid confusion between the two, but also because of Nana K's seemingly unflinching loyalty towards Nana O, very much like the faithful dog of legend, Hachiko. The two move in together, and what unfolds is a true coming-of-age tale that depicts their separate lives spanning across the years. On the surface, this series might seem like a sweet and happy-go-lucky tale about 2 young women who share the same name and become best friends. This story is far from your standard shoujo or josei series. Ai Yazawa's works aren't at all the sweet, light-hearted romantic shoujo and josei manga we're so accustomed to seeing. As with her past works, Yazawa has shown us the key differences between shoujo and the josei genres, namely that josei manga gives us a far more realistic and often cruel look at life and relationships, both platonic and romantic. If anything, the moral of Nana is that life doesn't always go the way you dreamed it would, but that doesn't mean you should stop living each day like it's your last. For example, before Hachi followed her boyfriend Shoji to Tokyo with dreams of becoming the perfect housewife, free of having to work a 9-to-5 job, back when she was in high school, she began an affair with an older and very much married man who made it obvious that what he liked about her, and subsequently took advantage of most, was her innocence about her dreamy ideals surrounding romance. Flash forward to a few years later, and Hachi moves to Tokyo to be with her boyfriend, only to discover her boyfriend is cheating on her. Hachi breaks up with him. However, this is where things really start to get complicated, as she's introduced to both Nana-O's bandmate Nobuo, and later introduced to the basis of her all-time favorite band, Trapnest, the infamous playboy Takumi Ichinose. It's at this point Hachi receives one of the harshest life lessons, that the celebrity and stars we so idolize and fantasize about often turn out to be horrible pieces of shit. Hachi forms a relationship with both men, only to get pregnant with no clue as to who the father is. Despite Nobuo's deep and sincere feelings for her, Hachi chooses to acknowledge the baby as Takumi's and subsequently marries him, namely because he's the one who can financially provide the securest future for her and her child, despite the fact that we as the audience, and all of the characters in Nana learn and know that Takumi is a deeply disturbed and habitual cheater who not only raped Nana-ke, but also constantly psychologically and emotionally abuses her as well. Nana Komatsu, I personally believe, is Ai Yazawa's take on so many of us who grew up reading, absorbing, and believing the sexist, toxic, and social construct of shoujo, josei, and Disney-inspired manga, anime, and movies, that we, as non-men, can only achieve true happiness from one day being swept off our feet by our prince, princess, or knight in shining armor on a white horse, and that their love will be enough to fix all of our problems for us and we'll live happily ever after. Sure, Nana-ke gets her prince. She gets the lavish lifestyle she's always wanted, but at what cost? In the end, Hachi is deeply unhappy with her life, one she so desperately thought she wanted, based off society's ideals of perfect love. And if Nana Komatsu is Yazawa's take on the privileged, silver spoon-fed shoujo, josei, and Disney fan who blindly and deeply believes in the false narratives of love and romance we have shoved down our throats from the earliest of ages, then Nana Osaki can easily be interpreted as Yazawa's representation of those of us who grew up fed with a metaphorical rusty knife, but still desperately clings to the same false ideals of love we're fed, despite swearing up and down we don't need love, when it's what those of us neglected desperately crave the most. Nana-O differs significantly from Nana Komatsu in that respect. As a child, Nana-O was abandoned by her mother, Mizuzu, who ultimately chose some man who hated children over her own daughter, of whom there are countless candidates of who could be Nana-O's father. As such, Nana-O was tolerated, not raised, mind you, but tolerated by her strict grandmother, who wouldn't even let her wear pink or red because those colors were quote-unquote sure to entice men and make her a loose woman like her mother. Nana-O grew up hated and despised by everyone, with no friends except her high school friend and later bandmate Nobuo. Once Nana-O was expelled from high school under the false rumor of her prostituting herself in the boys' bathroom, and following her grandmother's death, of whom Nana-O deeply believes she caused by not denying the accusations, she completely commits herself both psychologically and aesthetically to being the person society, as well as Nana-O herself, perceives her to be. Nana-O would then later meet her first love, Ren Honjo, and join his band, Blast, an amalgamation for Black Stones. Honestly, as much as I love this couple growing up, the truth is these two are far from relationship goals. Many fans of the series already know that Nana and Ren, as well as their relationship, are both designed as well as heavily inspired by the real-life rock couple Sid Vicious and Nancy Spungen. However, what needs to be clarified is that Nana-O herself seems to be a mixture of both Nancy as well as Sid Vicious's new girlfriend following Sid's murder of Nancy, Michelle Robinson. While Ren and Nana-O truly loved one another, the hard truth is that their relationship, very much like Sid and Nancy and Sid and Michelle Robinson, at its core was one of unhealthy codependency, or in what's better known in terms of psychology and sociology as what's known as a trauma bond. And yes, while it is true that Ren never physically abused Nana-O, their codependency and manipulation of one another can in fact be seen in vivid detail over the course of the series, and in of itself at times is astronomically abusive and unhealthy. This is only further driven home when Ren himself admits that he often thinks about killing Nana so that no one else can have her, also openly admitting that he hates himself for having these thoughts. Nana and Ren both come from pasts that are deeply rooted in trauma, abandonment, abuse, and neglect, with Ren himself being abandoned as a newborn in the warehouse district that would set the stage for many key events over the course of the series. Both grew up without the familial support that they desperately needed, and upon finding one another, likened themselves to kindred spirits rejected by the world in such a way that led them to misbelieve that only they could truly understand one another. However, what makes Yazawa such an effective writer is that she truthfully depicts just exactly how the unacknowledged and untreated effects of childhood trauma and abuse can and will eventually spill over to our day-to-day lives and interpersonal relationships, whether platonic or romantic. As such, and And I say again, while the love Nanao and Ren may have shared was indeed real, that doesn't make what they had any less toxic. Moreover, Nana and Ren independently held very, very different versions of their shared future. While Ren would love nothing more than to marry and start a family with Nana, Nana just wants to live her own life and make music free of the responsibility of children. I think it's utterly brilliant how Yazawa perfectly captured the spectrums in which we can see people who are either abandoned or lost their family and or subsequent stable home. Whereas Ren wants to start a family with Nana to make up for the family he didn't have, Nana is shown time and time again to be so traumatized by her mother abandoning her that she vehemently rejects the idea of motherhood in a way that has less to do with her being a young woman in her 20s who isn't even thinking about children, and instead ties to her deeply rooted fear of not only being an inadequate mother, as well as the fear of giving a child to the same world that showed her nothing but cruelty. However, what Nanao wants, and truly what she needs more than anything, is someone who won't abandon her, who will love her unconditionally and stay by her side for better or for worse. You could argue that Nana herself needs to be that person for herself. However, it's never that easy to become that person when you have lacked a sufficient support system growing up. It's Ren's decision to move to Tokyo where we initially see the difference between Nana Osaki and Nana Komatsu. Whereas Hachi followed her ex Shoji to Tokyo in the hopes of building a life for herself with him, Nana O didn't want to live her life for some man despite how much she loved him and how much it devastated her to part ways with him. She wanted to live as Nana Osaki, world famous vocalist, not as Nana Honjo, the nameless, quiet, impatient wife of a world famous bassist of whose shadow she'll always be chasing. As such, Nana O would later move to Tokyo to pursue her own dreams of becoming famous. However, upon reuniting with Ren years later, the feelings they shared for one another were just as passionate and as strong as they were when they first parted on that fateful snowy day. Unfortunately, in that time, the two realized they'd grown apart. Moreover, and tragically, as is often the case with many major celebrities, Ren himself had developed a severe addiction to multiple heavy drugs, something that I and so many others can personally relate to. I know exactly what it's like to turn to heavy drugs to numb the unfathomable daily pain that a lifetime of trauma has left you unable to cope with. I myself was a heavy user of cocaine, heroin, and other opiates in the same way that Ren was. Addiction destroyed my life. However, what many people still don't know and often refuse to understand is that the gateway drug isn't alcohol, cocaine, or opiates. No, the true gateway drugs are trauma and abuse that don't go addressed or healed. That doesn't at all excuse the actions of addicted people nor the effects that addiction or alcoholism have on the people around you. And I say this because I myself grew up with alcoholic and drug addicted parents and caregivers. Whatever trauma you may have that's afflicted on you by other people, and yes, as much as it may suck, it's entirely your responsibility for healing and making sure you don't perpetuate the same toxic actions that left you with immeasurable trauma. Tragically, neither Ren nor Nana were seemingly given an opportunity to address their deeply seated traumas. Instead, as opposed to breaking up with one another, their codependence on one another is so strong that Ren proposes to Nana O and the two become engaged, despite the fact that Ren is very much hiding his addiction. To make matters worse, Ren would later die in a car accident as a result of being under the influence of drugs despite wanting to get clean, and would subsequently bring Nana O's world and all of their plans for the future to an abrupt halt. Ren's death is probably the one that deeply traumatized and subsequently resonated with me in such a way that it sits with me to this very day, and more so than any other character in anime, manga, or any video game I've ever encountered. To make matters worse, Nana O and Ren had a fight the last and final time they would see one another, so for Ren to die without anything between them being resolved is in itself a suffocating type of anxiety and guilt that I and so many others live with every single day. Moreover, in my BuzzFeed article, I pitched the idea that Satsuki, the quote-unquote daughter of Hachi and Takumi, wasn't in fact Hachi and Takumi's daughter, but the daughter of Nana O and her fiance Ren, and that sadly Nana O did in fact repeat history and abandon her daughter in the same way that she herself had been abandoned by her own mother. The strongest evidence to support this is seen in the manga, just moments before Nana O receives the news of Ren's death. She laments over feeling sick and prays it's just because she missed her birth control pill and not because she's pregnant. Fast forward many years later, and the world believes Nana O to have committed suicide after a final cryptic conversation with Hachi, in which Nana O sadly laments, "I want to go to the sea," or depending on the translation, "I want to see Ren," with Ren's ashes being scattered at sea upon his death. However, Hachi, ever faithful to her best friend, remains optimistic that Nana O is still alive somewhere in this cold world, noting that Nana O never returned her key to the apartment they once shared during happier times. It's eventually revealed that Nana O is in fact alive and well, with private eye photos of her revealing she's making a living as a singer in a pub in London, identifiable only by her lotus tattoo in honor of Ren and the engagement ring she wears to this very day. Unfortunately, that's all the information we're given and have been left sitting with for over a decade. Honestly, I still feel like I haven't covered this series or its complex characters enough in depth, and I'm considering doing character profiles and analyses on each and every character in the same way that I plan to do with future videos videos on the characters of Fruits Basket. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. What did you love or hate about Nana, and do you hope to see it completed one day? Thanks for watching, y'all. Don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to Black Girls Anime for more in-depth, informative, educational, and entertaining analyses and reviews of your favorite anime, manga, video games, and more.